All right, boys and girls, today we're going to start with section 5.5. We're going to do day 2, and we're starting off with example 5, which is using the half angle formulas, and you can actually find those on page 387. Okay, so right above example 5. So the example that we're starting off with says, find the exact value of tangent of 105. Okay, real quick, if you notice the sine and the cosine formulas, those say positive and negative. That's because it depends on which quadrant u over 2 lies, okay? So depending on where u over 2 lies, it's either going to be positive or negative. Now, if you notice for tangent, it doesn't say positive or negative. So basically, it's just going to be positive no matter what, okay? Um, and so let's get started here. So tangent of 105. So we're going to be using, obviously, there's only one formula. And so let me help you set it up. Okay, so for tangent, we're going to be using tangent u over 2 equals sine of u over 1 plus cosine of u. Okay, and then one thing you're going to notice is u over 2 is 105. But if you notice in the formula, we're just using u. So all we have to do is solve for u. So u over 2 equals 105. So u will equal 210. Okay. So this is the angle that we're going to work with in our formula. So basically what we're going to have is sine of 210 degrees over 1 plus cosine of 210 degrees. Okay. So this is my setup for this one. And so I would suggest like you can use the unit circle to solve for sine of 210 and cosine of 210. So let me pull my unit circle out. Okay, so here's my circle. I have my coordinates, my radians, and just some of my degrees, not all of them. But pretty much I could just repeat the pattern. So hopefully yours is all filled out. Otherwise, you can refer to at the beginning of the book and you can fill in your degrees, okay? So obviously at pi is 180, so 210 would be here at 7 pi over 6, okay? So we want sine and cosine of 210. So sine would be negative 1/2 and cosine would be negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, so let's plug it in. So we're going to have negative 1/2 on top and then 1 plus negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, now this is just a fraction, so I can just simply simplify this using fraction properties, okay? So let me grab a different whiteboard because I don't think I'm going to have enough room. Okay, so this is the fraction that we're going to be working with. I mean, if you want to have your calculator do all the work for you and it could do it, that's fine, but I like to work it all out, okay? So here we go. Since I don't really have to do anything with the numerator for now, I'm just going to start simplifying the denominator, okay? So we need common denominator, so I'm going to write 2 over 2 minus radical 3 over 2, okay? And this is just the denominator. And of course, we have a fraction divided by a fraction. So now we should have negative 1/2 times, and then remember this is the same as 2 minus radical 3 over 2. So I should just write the reciprocal. So 2 over 2 minus radical 3. And then, of course, the 2's will cancel out. So this would just be 1. And so now I have negative 1 over 2 minus radical 3. And then remember, since these are values, I shouldn't have any radicals underneath. So I'm just going to multiply by the conjugates to the numerator and the denominator. Okay. The numerators will be very simple. We'll just have negative 2 minus radical 3. And then let's do FOIL here. So 2 times 2, that'll give me 4. Okay. And then 2 times radical 3, that'll give me 2 radical 3 but then you're going to multiply these, and these are opposites. So your outer and your inner will just cancel out. So let's just multiply our last. So radical 3 times radical 3 would be 3, but then we have a negative and a positive, so it'll just be minus 3. So my final answer should be, and then this would just reduce to 1. So my final answer would just be minus 2 or negative 2 minus radical 3. And that's it. Okay. So again, I just did FOIL at the bottom. Okay. This one's very straightforward. Nothing complicated. Okay. And again, you just have to write down the formulas. Okay. So either pause the video and do now the checkpoint for example 5, or the next one that we're going to do is example 6. Okay. So it's up to you. You can either keep watching or pause the video. All right, boys and girls, now we're moving on to example 6, which is solving a trig equation. And for this one, they want us to find all solutions of cosine squared of x plus 4 times sine squared of x over 2 equals 1 in the interval of 0 and 2 pi. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's start off. Okay, so we're working with a half angle here. So for the half angle, I am going to use, and that's for this one, okay? I'm going to use, let's see, plus or minus square, oops, I'm so sorry. I keep hitting the camera. We're going to use plus or minus square root of 1 minus cosine of x. Of course, in the formulas are using u, but obviously we're using x, over 2, okay? And then let me just bring everything down. Oh, wait, before I bring everything down, this is being squared. So make sure you squared out here, okay? Equals 1 multiplied by 4 plus cosine squared of x. Okay. Now, real quick, because this is being squared, when you square a positive, you still get a positive. When you square a negative, you still get a positive. And then when you square a square root, it'll be gone. So now basically what we're going to end up with is cosine squared of x plus 4 times 1 minus cosine. Give me a sec. I keep hitting the camera. Okay, sorry about that. 1 minus cosine of x over 2 equals 1. And no more squared because, again, we already got rid of the square and square root. And again, no more plus or minus because of the squaring. Okay, so this is what we're left with. Okay, so cosine squared of x plus 4 times 1 minus cosine of x over 2 equals 1. Okay, so now I'm going to start to simplify this. So if I look, I can simplify the numerator and denominator. So this will be 1 and then this will be 2. So now I'm left with cosine squared of x plus 2. And then what I want to do is I want to distribute. Plus 2 minus 2 cosine of x equals 1. Okay. And don't forget that whenever we solve for a trig equation, you always want it to equal 0. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 1 to both sides. Okay. And so what we're left with is cosine squared of x minus 2 oops, that almost looks like an O. 2 cosine of x plus 1 equals 0. And the reason why I rearranged it is because it's starting to look like a trig equation, okay? So now we're going to factor it out, okay? So again, let me get a different whiteboard because I'm running out of room. Okay, here we go. So now we have cosine squared of x minus 2 cosine of x plus 1 equals 0. So basically, I can use the AC method. This is just a quadratic equation. So this would be cosine of x minus 1 and cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so think about it this way. AC method, what you learned in integrated 3, you're looking for two numbers that multiply to give you whatever A times C is, your coefficients. In this case, it'll just be positive 1, and add to give you negative 2. So negative 1 times negative 1 will give you positive 1, and negative 1 plus negative 1 will give you negative 2. And again, we're working with cosine, okay? And you can double check by doing FOIL here, okay? So now that we have this factored out and we have it equal to 0, then the only thing left to do is to set each one equal to 0. But just so you know, we're going to get the same thing, so we really don't have to repeat our answer, to be honest. So I could just set cosine of x minus 1 equal to 0. So just set one of those because it'll be the same answer. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and so now we have cosine of x equals positive 1. Okay, and then again, you can use your unit circle to look at that. So if you look at your unit circle, when does cosine give you 1 in the unit circle? So you can look, and it only occurs one time, and it occurs here at 0. Okay, so here's 1. So basically, my angle will be, sorry about that. My angle would be x equals 0. And I want an exact solution because they did define our domain. They said between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, so my angle would be x equals 0. When x is 0, cosine would be 1. Okay. All right, so now go ahead and try checkpoint on example 6, and then check your solutions for both example checkpoint 5 and example 6 checkpoint.